So at this point, I would like to invite David Bonev, who is co-founder and CFO of QRS, and he's also co-founder of Bonex. Bonex is...
It's a crypto exchange. It's actually the biggest crypto exchange in Bulgaria at the moment. We are very proud, and we have done all the regulations. I'm sorry, how do I change the slides with the... Yeah, with on the right? All right. So, I will tell you my professional opinion and also my existential thoughts on the matter of blockchain and cross-border payments, which was a few years ago. It was something that nobody would believe it would happen, but right now there's a direct interlink between the banking system and the use of blockchain. So let's start, yeah? So it's game on. What is game on actually about? Something very, very important happened just a few weeks ago. Something monumental that nobody is really talking about so much. What happened is the Monetary Authority of Singapore sent the BOC, Bank of Canada, the amount of 105 Singapore dollars, guess how? Via blockchain. Now, this is a direct correlation of the adoption of the banking system of blockchain. But if I have to go into the details of how exactly this happened, we'll have to go back a few years ago, all the way back into 2017, where SWIFT, who, as you may know, it's a synonym for international payments. So SWIFT started a POC project. What does that stand for? It's proof of concept. So backed by 22 international banks, SWIFT started a proof of concept project, which the idea was to monetize and validize the initiative in order to check and experience whether the blockchain is secure enough and fast enough to proceed payments so that the banking community can adopt it. So let's continue. I'm going to give you some numbers and we're going to go into the details about it. So 40% of global payments were cross-border payments. The number of those payments, it's $135 trillion. This is $135 trillion of the banking system going around the world in a very slow and not cost-effective manner. But this is not the cool part. The very negative part about it is that 38% of the global community of us, of human beings, doesn't actually have access to banking services. You know, 38% of the population is unbanked. That means that 38% of the population doesn't have the ability to send, receive money and goods via banking system, something that we are very lucky and we are taking for granted, let's say in Europe or in the States. So let's go even a little bit deeper in it. Let's take Venezuela as an example. I don't know if you've noticed, but since a few years there's been a lot of geopolitical turmoil there. Under the very corrupt and very bad governed by Maduro, the Venezuela's currency has devaluated by 95%. Just imagine and think about this number. 95% of your savings have been reduced. If you had $100 in saving, now you have $5. And all of this could have been avoided if the money of the citizens of Venezuela were kept in a stable coin crypto basket. And if you had your $100 in stable coins, no matter how dumb or stupid your governance or your elected officials are, you wouldn't wake up with a depreciated value of your own money and earnings. You know, this is a direct solution. What is the next one? 38% of the people don't have access to banking services, but they do. As long as they have access to the internet, they can access the blockchain, they can convert that fiat into crypto, and they can send their money to their family, relatives, or in order to purchase good or technology, just a few hours, anywhere around the world, without going through the hassle and the shitty bureaucracy of the banking system that is right now. And I'm speaking of you as a private banker. You know, this is what I do as a day-to-day work. So, what are the current struggles of cross-border payments? The biggest struggle of cross-border payment is the following. Again, I'm speaking of this as a professional banker. If a bank has to send money cross borders into another country that you would wish your payment to be received, and the bank does not have a direct representation in that country, what does the bank do? Bank A has to go through Bank B in order to facilitate that payment. But what is the negative about it? The negative about it is that every bank has its own legacy system. First of all, it has its own legacy system, it has its own in-house rules, and the third and most worst problem about it, that each bank has to go under the regulation of the national bank of this specific country. All of this accumulates to a process which is very slow. You have no precise idea whether your money are going to be received by the second party in 1 day, 2 days, or maybe 72 hours, and you have no precise idea what the percentage of this transaction is going to cost you at the end of it. And this is an absurd. And I'm saying this is an absurd because we didn't even know it's an absurd before we had blockchain. Because with blockchain, whenever you send money to anybody or to his wallet, you know that he's going to receive the money, you can follow the transactions, you know exactly when, how much, and how much is going to cost you in the beginning. Unlike banking, whenever you send money, you have absolutely no idea how much exactly it's going to cost you at the receiving end. So, what is the simple solution of it all? As I mentioned to you, the MIS send money to the BLC Bank of Canada. Each already has its own distributed ledger for processing the clearing and settlement of payments and securities domestically. Their multi-step exchange relied on, and I love this word, atomicity. It comes from atoms. That means dispersion of small particles. A condition where a group of transactions in a chain must all succeed. If one of them doesn't succeed, they all fail, and they go back into the beginning, and the goods are received in the beginning of the exchange. So, let me give you a very brief example of how it works. Using hash time locked contracts or HTLCs, if Alice wanted to buy something from John for the amount of $1,000, so what would happen in the following ways? John generates a random number, and he uses it to create a hash, which is then being sent to Alice. So Alice sends the $1,000 along with the hash that John sent her. In order to unlock the payment, they must show her the data he used to produce the hash. So what does John do? John produces the data and unlocks the payment. If these steps don't happen in time, all of the transactions fail. So, you know, we're going back to blockchain, you know, this perfect utopia. It's safer, it's quicker, it's cheaper, it's amazing, it's the perfect financial orgasm. But no, it's a little bit more than that. If I have to put it in one sentence, it's an open, uncorruptible ledger that tracks and verifies transactions. And here, I would like to get a little bit out of the box and get a little bit more existential on you guys. I would like to give you a specific example of how blockchain in the very near future will affect each and everyone's life in a much deeper sense and way that we ever thought about it. It goes beyond the financial system. I'll give you an example. Think about the concept of a referendum, yeah? So a country and a government holds a referendum about a subject that is very important and will directly encounter the lives of the citizens of this specific country. So what does it do? It holds the referendum, the citizens go and they vote. At the end, you have to trust that the process that the government held was untampered, and you have to trust that the result that at the end they will say, okay, listen, so we have 57% for yes, so it's being voted. And you say, okay, but I'm not so sure, is it true? You can never know. You can never know. Democracy, it's a bullshit lie. How can we change that? How can we literally change democracy right now, not 10, 20 years ago, not by figuring out a whole new system, communism, whatever? No. We can directly use blockchain. How? Let's say a referendum is held on blockchain. Every vote would be transparent. Every vote would be accounted for. There would be full transparency. There will be no doubt, and the tampering of those votes and the results would be unquestionable. And this is amazing, people, because blockchain, it's more than this. Blockchain is an existential extension of the goodness of the human condition. It removes the factor that you have to trust someone else. You can trust math. Mathematical, it's always been much more relied upon than human beings. So, how and why? Every blockchain must have a currency associated with it. The activity of verifying transaction, it's kept profitability by the use of an associated currency normally referred to as cryptocurrency. Transaction fees in that currency are attached to every transaction, collected by network of verifiers. And just to give you an example, in the 10 euro bracket, a typical transaction fee would be 3%. In the bracket of 1,000 euros, it would be a fraction of that, yeah? So let's talk about the most wanted, the most erotic currencies, yeah? Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple. I would probably spend a little more time talking about Bitcoin because in my own opinion, Bitcoin is our generation's digital gold. Just think about it. It's our generation's digital gold. Why? We are mining it, yeah, just like gold, but in our modern terms through computers and technology. The price of Bitcoin, just as gold, it's based on the demand of Bitcoin, just as it's based on the demand of gold. But Bitcoin, it's much, much better, you know? Not only because just like gold, it's a hedge for geopolitical turmoil or war or economical uncertainty. It's much more than that. It's easily accessible, resendable funds. Imagine that you have $10,000 in saving, yeah? You buy a brick coin for $10,000, you know, a gold bar. You take that gold bar, put it in your pocket. I dare you, try to go one of your borders, try to go to France, to the UK. You will get stopped by customs control. You will lose at least 5 hours in explanation of the documentation where you bought the gold, where you had the money to buy this gold. You will lose hours, you will lose your flight, you will lose your patience, you will hate the fucking system. So Bitcoin is something that you can put your $10,000 in and send it to anybody at any time at your own will, just at the fingertips of a laptop or whatever, as long as you have internet. Ethereum, of course, is a contractual platform, and as such, it uses cases are multiple and far-reaching. As you know, Ethereum, it's compared with the ICOs, which made billions and millions, and people made a lot of money and lost a lot of money now. ICOs are being made into IEOs and IEOs into STOs, which is good. It's more regulated, it's more safe. You know, it's a totally new age and we're building it ourselves. There is no central system that tells us this is right, this is wrong, and this is your result. We make the choices for ourselves and we're in control of our own assets. This is something that's never been done before. It's always been controlled by governance, by banks, by bullshit. So I would like to give some honorable mentions. JP Morgan, you know, it leverages the blockchain to minimize friction, assured far faster payments, in fewer steps, more securely, nothing special. IBM, which is rated the #1 blockchain company, again trying to facilitate a safer, quicker, less frictional payment method. MasterCard, one of the biggest names in the payment service providers, who is actually giving access to his APIs for the ability that it can actually improve himself. Curious Token, it's actually a very interesting project I would like to talk to you about. Curious Token, it's actually the only platform that gives you the opportunity to get access to the most important thing. Because listen, in our days with crypto, you can buy anything. You can buy Lamborghinis, you can buy technologies. Wow, I mean, you can even buy a property in Monaco. What is the only thing that actually you cannot buy with crypto at the moment? Access to health. And Cures token, because on his platform it has more than hundreds of hospitals worldwide, you can actually, via the Cures token, you can get access to health. Isn't this amazing? Anywhere around the world, you can buy anywhere, anytime, a health-provided service through any hospitals. So, just to finish off, actually, he's a friend of mine, Chris Dixon. I had the pleasure to meet him 2 years ago in Malta. I'm going to quote him, so commodity-based are politically based and mathematically based. Those are the 3 areas of currency. Right now, we're in the mathematically based currency, and the banks are fighting because it's much more harder to manipulate number and logic than there is to manipulate the human mind, yeah? And this is it. So I'm ready for questions if we have the time.
He actually finished on time, I like that. So let's have a few questions for David. Well, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So I saw a photo of a billboard advertising, and there was this complicated mathematical formula about with a square root and FC and something like this. And so if none of you have seen it, I urge you to go on Google. It's probably one of the best advertisements I've seen in Bulgaria.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much for the compliment.
Yeah. I can't.
It's actually my father who thought about it. He designed it, yes. He's actually sitting right there. Let's give him an applause for him. May I tell them what it says?
Something like...
It says, square root, fuck the banks, equals go crypto. But in a very cool mathematical way, yeah?
In a very polite way,
yes.
In a very,
considerate, yes.
It's been making the rounds on Twitter, and I'm based in London, so I've seen it a number of times being forwarded around people in London.
Yeah, even we had in Singapore a few colleagues of ours to share it in media,
Tell us a bit more about Bonex. You mentioned it's Bulgaria-based, regulated.
Yeah, it's a regulated crypto exchange. The thing is that in Bulgaria, the Bulgarian National Bank, back in 2015, sent a specific document to all the Bulgarian banks where it says, basically, there is no specific law which forbids you to receive or send money from crypto exchanges and to service the service, but we're against it. So what the bank did, whenever you try to receive or send crypto money, they would say, no, we won't do it. And you say, okay, what is the problem? I have origin of my money, origin of my funds. And they say, no, we are a private bank. And literally, we have the legislation right to refuse business to anybody just on our own choosing. So what we did, we had a very strong legal team from the UK who actually overcame that. And now we're actually the only crypto exchange in Bulgaria. Of course, there are many others, but we're the only crypto exchange in Bulgaria who works with the Bulgarian banks. All the other crypto exchanges have to go to Litva or some other banks outside of Bulgaria, which actually makes the transaction much, much slower than us. And I'm not saying it as a commercial, I'm just saying it took us more than 1 year just legally to get this properly made.
So you're able to meet all of the requirements
all of the
by
requirements,
the banks.
And it took a very strong legal team, which we were supposed to get outside of Bulgaria, and it took us 1 year, which is crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. I mean, you'll hear from me later because we have a license in the UK, so we've encountered some of the problems that you've encountered. This is very interesting.
Yeah. Dubai are very friendly, actually. They're very super crypto friendly, just saying.
And how do people access it? Is it on mobile devices?
Yeah, we have a mobile version, and the only thing that we're actually the only crypto exchange which actually allows you to hold your crypto in our own cold storage wallets, which are safe, they cannot be tampered with, so that gives you the autonomous power to actually, without even us doing anything for you technologically, you can transact and you can instantly change your money from fiat to Bitcoin to crypto. Usually it takes 1.5 to 3 hours with us, and if you have your money in cold storage with us, you can do it instantly. So this is something that gives the crypto traders a direct access on a national level.
Fantastic. We have a question back there.
Hi, David. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
It's very interesting how did you succeed that now you're the only one Bulgarian exchange that works with the Bulgarian banks? And you said that with very strong legal team from UK you have achieved that, but does it mean that now the private Bulgarian banks which initially refused transactions to other players now won't refuse to transact with your exchange? I mean,
I'm sorry, what is the first question was that are actually the banks literally refusing transactions to other exchanges and to other people, and how are they allowing us to do it?
I mean, how they're choosing not to refuse to act with you.
So why are they accepting you and not everybody else?
Without getting into a lot of legal details, we were almost on the brink of suing the Bulgarian National Bank in Strasbourg. So they gave us, and we're the only exchange in Bulgaria, they gave us a specific directive that the banks in Bulgaria cannot refuse this service. But that took us, again, 1 year and an X amount of a lot of zeros money in order to achieve that. But whenever you're fighting the system, and of course, it may sound cool, you know, we're fighting the system, but of course, we are also fighting the system for our own profit. But the thing is that we were very lucky that we were backed up by very strong people with a lot of capital. Otherwise, we wouldn't succeed. And we are right in our own way, but you have to back your rights with cash, which is kind of unfortunate. But this is the system we're living in.
Okay, respect. Thanks.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.